Alright, this Diesel We the People News. One more time at it. Okay, not attorney, not giving legal advice. Educational purposes only. Okay, um, don't want to dumb myself down, so I never became an attorney. Sorry. uh, However, I do learn from attorneys as well, right? Uh, that being said, never look straight forward, always look around you, be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Now, I thought this was interesting in one way, well, in several different ways, but one specifically. You heard me say that I scratched out and put innocent on there, and that there is a difference, right? Well, I figured, what the heck? You guys heard me say this. But in this particular case, uh, Steve Leto, however you pronounce his name, um, actually is helping you with the actual lawyer explaining it. Okay? All right? I stopped at a stop sign, but the cop said I ran it. I was innocent. Okay? And when I went in there to fight it, and I may be getting a couple of other ones mixed up, uh, but I was innocent either way it goes. Went in there, scratched out, not guilty, no contest, no, and guilty, and I put a little square box in there, and then I check marked it and put innocent. The case was dismissed. It could be an accident, could be a fluke, and they just may not want to mess with it or whatever. Okay. While I was in there, the clerk, now it's just a reminder for the new ones that's entering, right? I told the clerk uh, that none of these three applied to me. I was innocent. Okay. Well, she told me I had to just circle one of these. So I'm not going to do it. Are you ordering me to file a false deal in court? I said a different word, but yeah, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm tired, y'all. Um, and are you giving me legal advice? Right? Are you acting as my attorney? And she says, no, I can't do that and this, that, here, and there. Then this has to do. Okay? And I gave it to her, walked off. And sometime or another, I got in the mail that the case was dismissed and all that. This is taking too long. Let's go ahead and go and find out what am I talking about. Sierra, since it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm not clearly speaking.
Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
Randall and a whole bunch of other people sent me this story from UPI. Missouri woman found innocent of murder after 43 years in prison. Woman spent 43 years in prison, and now it's pretty much recognized that she didn't do it and she shouldn't have been in prison in the first place. So after serving 43 years in a Missouri prison for a murder she did not commit, a judge on Friday ruled that Sandra Hemme is innocent and must be freed. Livingston County, Missouri, Circuit Judge Ryan Horstman ruled that Hemme's legal team provided evidence affirming her innocence, and she must be released from prison within 30 days if prosecutors don't seek a retrial. We are grateful to the court for acknowledging the grave injustice she has endured for more than 4 decades, her legal team said. The Innocence Project and an attorney named Sean O'Brien challenged the decades-old conviction. Her legal team said her 43 years in prison is the longest a woman has served due to a wrongful conviction in the U.S. They'll continue seeking a dismissal of any charges against her while she reunites with her remaining family. She was convicted of the murder in 1980 of a woman who worked at a library, and she was found by her daughter in an apartment. Okay? So despite having no connection to the victim, Hemme, the woman here, signed confession statements, but she was a psychiatric patient at the time. Her attorney argued that the interviews occurred while she was heavily medicated and her confessions didn't match the crime. She also signed 4 different confessions. And you might say, Steve, 4 different confessions, doesn't that make it more likely that she really did it? Well, it makes you wonder why you'd get confessions 2, 3, and 4. Wasn't the first confession good enough? And did they all match? So her attorney says she signed those statements while under chemical restraints. The psychiatric drugs literally were designed to overpower her will. Now, physical evidence also points out that she probably didn't commit this crime either, because among other things, there was a police officer who died in 2015 in prison who likely committed the murder, according to people who've now examined this entire thing. For example, a pair of earrings belonging to the victim were found in that officer's apartment. How he got them? And don't say, oh, maybe he's a souvenir of the trial. It's not what you do if you're a police officer. You don't bring home souvenirs. So it turns out that that officer was investigated for burglaries and insurance fraud and was imprisoned when he died. Now, one thing to let you know, a couple things, is first of all, there's a chance the prosecution could decide to retry her. They could. They could try to retry her. But the other thing I have to point out is that if you get convicted of a crime, you're guaranteed one appeal. You're guaranteed one appeal in most states. And so you take your appeal and you file it. And you lose. Well, you can then seek to have that appealed, but there's more steps you got to take. But as you climb the ladder, okay, you get tried in a circuit court, then you go to an appellate court, then you go to your state Supreme Court. Let's suppose you lose all the way through. So then you go, okay, I'm going to go to the federal court system on a habeas corpus theory, which means that my argument is I'm being deprived of my constitutional rights because I've been wrongfully imprisoned because I didn't do this. And so you file the habeas corpus action in the federal court, and let's suppose you lose. You then go to the Federal Court of Appeals. Let's suppose you lose. You then go to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they can hear your case and rule on it, or they can decline to hear it, and then you're done. You're done. All your appeals are done. And there's time frames on all of this, by the way. So you've got to file your appeal, the one that you have of right, meaning that you automatically get that one appeal if you want it, within a certain time frame. Okay? And now, the later appeals will have their own time frame issues. But generally speaking, the longer you go, the harder it becomes to overturn something on appeal. Now, it doesn't look like they went much beyond the circuit court in this case at this time. I don't know if she had previous appeals back 42, 41 years ago. I don't know. But the one thing they point out here is that the court did say that they found her innocent. And you might say, but Steve, I thought courts just found people either guilty or not guilty. No, juries are asked guilty or not guilty. But actual innocence is a standard that you can raise, and it's usually raised after you've used all of your other arguments and lost. And one of the things that the courts want to do is they don't want people just tying up the courts with appeals. As you can imagine, if you got sentenced to life in prison and you had nothing better to do and appeals were unlimited, you just start filing appeals upon appeals upon appeals. And eventually the courts are going to go, dude, stop it. Okay, you've lost 37 appeals, so you can't file 37 appeals. And we've heard of cases before where somebody came upon something extremely useful, but they'd already exhausted all their appeals. And it's like, can they now bring this up and say, well, it's newly discovered evidence. It'd be unfair not to let me bring this up. And that's going to depend on the state and what it is and how long it's been and all kinds of other stuff. But I'm pointing out the fact that actual innocence is one of those arguments of last resort, where if it turns out that you can prove you're innocent, not that you're not guilty, but that you're innocent. You might go, Steve, what's the difference? Well, if I can prove that the conviction shouldn't have happened because of a technicality, that would make me not guilty. Right? If I get a court to buy that. However, if I can prove I'm innocent, obviously I shouldn't have been found guilty. Not technicality. I'm innocent. And so there have been...
And see, and here lies the problem. And I'm not directing at him at all, but the judicial branch, right? The Constitution specifically says you are presumed innocent. Okay? It's up to the other party to prove that you're guilty. Not that you got to prove your innocence. But what did you just say? That you got to prove your innocence. Sit and let that ring for a minute. Okay? So, when you go in there and go no contest, or, you go in there and make a plea not guilty, you're actually waiving your rights of being innocent. Sit and think about that. And when you go into court, they're not presuming you're innocent. And I would go as far as, could it be tampering with the jury by forcing them to say not guilty instead of innocent? Sit and think about that. Trial by jury has got the innocent in it. And then must judge upon the facts and the law. Okay? I heard somebody tell me one time that they asked for the law so they can read the law. And the judge denied it. Well, there's somebody's life at stake here, financial or otherwise. And they have a right to judge the law and read it and make sure it actually is what it is. So why did the judge deny that law to be printed out for the jury to read it? Because I'm still under the illusion that's tampering with the jury. So everybody else can't tamper with the jury, but the judge can. Allegedly. All right, covering that butt. But sit and think about this for a second, right? He just sat here and explained there is a difference, which is what I've been telling y'all. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. This is educational purposes only. Okay? But this is what I've been saying. There is a difference. Now, I'm going to do a step further than he didn't explain. I'm led to believe and do believe, with my education, not his or anybody else's, and not an attorney and not giving legal advice, that you still means you're guilty. It's just they could not prove you're guilty because you're not innocent. And that's the reason why they want you to be not guilty. They don't want you to do innocent. And again, this is what's somewhat frustrating about law today, right? You're presumed innocent. No, you're not. You're presumed not guilty, maybe. I am led to believe and do believe with what times I've been in the courtroom that you're presumed guilty. And you got to make a claim. Not guilty, no contest, or guilty. Well, you just took the burden off them. Well, it don't work that way. Yes, it does. You made a claim. Okay? Even if I put innocent on it, I made a claim. So it's the law is so contradictory to one another. It's unbelievable how it has been torn and shredded into many different directions. Let's go.
Some cases before, I've seen where somebody's run out of all their appeals, and something comes up that they can go, that proves it right there. That proves it. And the best example I can give you is, let's suppose that there's a murder case years and years and years ago, and somebody went to prison on some shaky eyewitness testimony, maybe a jailhouse snitch. Person's rotting away in jail, and they are calling out to everybody. Finally, Innocence Project or somebody like that steps in and reviews the file. And they make a find. They go, wait, in the file, it says here that they've got the clothes that came off the victim in storage. And they've got blood stains on them. And nowadays, with modern technology, we can do more than they could do, say, 43 years ago, for example. And so they test the blood stains after getting permission from the court to do so. And the blood stains belong to somebody else. And it turns out that according to everything people believe, the stains on the clothing were there because there was a vicious fight between the victim and the perpetrator. And so they expected to find the blood of both people on those clothes. So they found the victim's blood and they found the perpetrator's blood. And they run that blood through, and it turns out, boom, it pops up to a known person who is in jail right now for murder that occurred a few months after this one did. So detectives go and talk to that person and go, hey, we're kind of curious about something. Your blood turned up in another case. Person puts her head down and goes, I was wondering when you were going to show up. And without any other prompting, describes that first murder. Says, yep, that was me. I killed that woman, killed that guy, whatever it was. Got away with it, and then I did the one I'm in prison here for now. Now, most people, upon hearing those facts and hearing about that evidence, would go, oh, that first person's innocent. Unless there's some connection. So then they ask the guy who's in prison, by the way, did you do this by yourself? Do you have an accomplice? No, I did it by myself. Why? And he's got some reason. Says, I did it because of this, that, and everything. I knew this person, though. Most people say at that point, okay, especially this guy will testify to it under oath, because he might get charged with that also, and they can start stacking, sentences up on him. But the point is that if you can prove you're actually innocent, it's usually one of the last things you can do with respect to arguments you can make. Because on appeal, most people are arguing things like technicalities, how the court handled the trial, witness tampering, jury misconduct, things like that, ineffective counsel. But actual innocence is extremely hard to prove. But when you can prove it, well, it seems like that is a situation where courts...
And there you go. Lies the problem. It's extremely hard to prove. And that's the reason why they don't want you to claim innocent. Because, well, they actually have to do work, investigate, and make sure that everything is in line. It's better for 100 guilty men to be set free than it is one innocent man, or alleged not guilty man, to spend any time at all in jail.
Gotta go. We know it's been a long time. We know you've used a lot of your appeals, but this is the one where you gotta let somebody go. So it's a good result, but it's 43 years late. Randall and everybody else, thanks for sending it. From UPI, Missouri woman found innocent of murder after 43 years in prison. And again, I emphasize, being found innocent is different and better than simply being found not guilty. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
I cannot agree more than that, people. But you want to talk about judicial being fair? He may not like this, okay? And I'm not talking about him per se, but the whole situation itself. We are misled to believe something that does not exist anymore. We are all taught we are innocent beyond reasonable doubt and presumed. We are presumed. All right? Not anymore. These are We the People News. Bye, y'all.